you think people's awareness of it is becoming more acute? Or because I was just thinking back to, like, when my parents, I mean, we were talking about sort of like illness and dealing with illness earlier on, and my dad suffered with vascular dementia before he finally passed away, and mum found it very difficult to talk about because it wasn't the done thing to be ill in those days. And I do wonder if we've turned a corner with things being acceptable to talk about. I think the fact that we're having these conversations and posting them is very positive, and there seems to be a lot more of that. Do you see that happening, with people becoming more aware of not only the fact that they are allowed to have a condition or a disability, for what I tend to call it, and also that they're much more aware of what they're shoving into their petrol tank, for want of a better expression?
I think absolutely the ability for people to talk about and access health information is changed dramatically, hasn't it? Not just in a generation, but probably just in the last 10, 15 years. What comes with that information overload is ensuring the credible nature of it, and that can be a challenge sometimes. I think people are more aware of their health. I think, again, this last 18 months has kind of brought it home to a lot of people about health issues and immune health in particular. Most people are now aware that if you have certain conditions like obesity, heart disease, diabetes, you are more likely to get a severe form of COVID, and obviously the outcomes are worse. And that, I think, has helped raise the profile of people wanting to look after themselves, and wanting to access more information about how they can take more control over their health, which can only be a good thing. As you alluded to, Dave, I think blokes lag behind a little bit still in terms of their willingness to either accept that they might not be in the best possible shape and then seek help for that. And that's something that we probably need to focus on as a society, is how we get men to recognize that they need support. Their physiology needs support just as much as women do.
I mean, it is a typical male thing, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with me, and that's certainly what I went through before I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. There are various symptoms that started to manifest themselves: scuffing my feet when I was walking, bumping into things, and finally I thought, well, I've obviously got a trapped nerve, because that was the obvious explanation to shuffling your feet and bumping into things, really, and went to see the doctor. He did a number of tests within the surgery and said, I'm going to refer you to neurology. And even then, I didn't even think to ask the doctor, why are you referring me to neurology? I just went along, and the consultant did the same tests, and he said, well, what do you think you've got? And me being me, my famous last words, or almost last words, were, well, you're the consultant, you tell me. And he said, well, I'm 99.9% sure you've got Parkinson's. And because I hadn't really, but ironically to my wife, that was actually, she was actually quite pleased with that, because she thought I might have got motor neuron disease. So she was it's funny how people have sort of different perspectives on the situation, but I didn't have any kind of social reference for Parkinson's at all. I didn't know whether that meant, I didn't even really know what it was. I just knew that there was something to do with shaking. And it was a very, very much a bloke thing that I experienced. And that's why, since my diagnosis, I spend a reasonable amount of time telling people that if you have got something that you think is wrong, for God's sake, go and do something about it, because it's better to know in advance than leave it too late. I mean, with Parkinson's, it's got a very slow glide path. It's not going to necessarily degenerate that quickly. And I've now been 11 years diagnosed. So, but if you do think there's something wrong, then it's good to talk about it and have it looked at. I think, as you say, you wouldn't drive a car till the brakes failed. But as a bloke, you're quite happy to wander down the street bumping into things and scuffing your feet and just thinking, oh, I've got a trapped nerve. But
and I guess there's that whole kind of diagnostics, the advances in diagnostics. So when I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. When I got the diagnosis, I wasn't even sat in the office with the consultant listening to it. I was on the end of a phone because I was still at work in London, and I just stepped out of a meeting just to take this call with the consultant, because in my head I'd convinced myself that nobody in my level of fitness, age 52, could possibly get prostate cancer because it was an old blokes thing. And there I was, I'd had the blood test, I'd had the health check, which had had the blood test, which had picked up a warning sign. I'd then had the biopsy. I'd then kind of waiting for what the consultant sort of thought from that. And it's just that kind of tumbleweed moment. Oh my God, it can't possibly happen to me for these reasons.
Yeah.
And those kind of things creep up on you. And another big kind of reinforcement for my belief was I didn't have any symptoms. I haven't got any of the symptoms of prostate cancer. Why would I have it? But as diagnosis advances, then it's not just about wait until the brakes start to feel a bit spongy, or wait until the warning light comes on the petrol. It's kind of, presumably, Peter, it's about kind of the checklist really that you should be going through at a certain age, certain backgrounds, and so on, to get to tell you stuff you don't even know about yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, we service our car regularly. We get it serviced every year or every so many thousand miles. And the health checks that you can get through the NHS are there for a reason. They've been designed so that they can pick up things at an early stage, and are deliberately set up so they can pick up when you don't have symptoms. So encouraging people to take advantage of that is really, really important. All of those kind of screening tests are important. And too often, I think that those, whether men or women who are working, but probably men more so, will say, well, I haven't got any symptoms. I'm working, I can't get to the GPs between 9 and 5 for my appointment to do the screening, and therefore I'll give it a miss, because obviously, it's all going to come back negative anyway.
Yeah.
And one of the things around men's health is that actually we probably need to recognise that men are different to women, and therefore maybe we need to change the way we expect men to access health. Because they probably won't access it in the same way as women do, and we may need to take health more to the men and having more access to it in the workplace for those sorts of screening tests and those sort of well-manned clinic type things.
Yeah, certainly there was there is a campaign that I got a little bit involved in after my diagnosis, which is testing men for prostate cancer at their local football club.
Yeah.
So it's not immediately before the game, but it's in between games. Just setting up a test centre just to do it. And certainly the first time the take up was kind of average. The second time they actually ran out of tests. They had to turn blokes away because there were so many blokes turned up. Now, how many blokes would queue round the corner to their doctors to get a test for prostate cancer? It just wouldn't happen, would it? But it's getting the right kind of almost like the right kind of mindset, really, because if a load of blokes were all going for a test together, they all knew each other, all of a similar age, it's like, well, let's go for a beer afterwards, or let's it's a camaraderie of it. Whereas I know full well when you're in that room on your own, you're having the conversation with a consultant, it's just, you're on your own, it's your diagnosis, and boy, that's a frightening place to be.
It's almost like test by tribe, isn't it? If you can find a tribe of blokes that you can get to go together, it makes things a lot better.